Peter, I'm ranting here. I'm not happy that you've been proven right. I'm not happy we've been proven right, because I realize the public has no idea on average what's going on. Not our audience. A lot of them are smarter than I am. I just have this intellectual view, but also this feeling that I'm like in an insane asylum or something. I mean, how crazy is this going to get?
Well, you know, I think a lot more data is going to come out before the general public can accept that I'm right, or maybe not the general public, the so-called experts on the economy, the very experts that basically said that there was about a 90% chance the Fed was going to raise rates by December. Now, I was saying that the chance was closer to zero. Now that we got today's horrible jobs report, and I'm going to talk about that, but now those experts are changing their forecasts, and now they're saying, well, now that we got this new information, maybe the Fed is going to wait until March. Look, I didn't need to see this job data to know the Fed wasn't going to raise rates, because they will prick their own bubble. But let's look at how bad this jobs report was, because it was really, really bad, right? They were expecting 203,000 jobs. We only got 142,000, right? That's way less than even the lowest end of the estimate.
And that's them pumping with giant fire hoses $1,000 bills.
Yeah, but they went back and they revised last month, which was originally reported at 173. Everybody was expecting that to be revised up to above 200. I remember on CNBC, Mark Zandi, chief economist, Moody's.com, when that 173 number came out, he said, ignore it. It means nothing. They're going to revise it up. It's well over 200,000. We're going to get another 200,000 next month. Everything is great. They revised that number down all the way to 136,000. From, you know, so that's 70,000 less.
And isn't that cooked numbers anyways, too?
Well, who knows if they're cooked, but they're still lousy. Even if they're cooked. And then they went back to the month before that, and they revised that down too. So they revised down 2 months. This month was lousy. Then look at, you alluded to labor force participation, dropped to 62.4. That's a new low for this cycle. You got to go back to the 1970s to get a participation rate that low. But, you know, that doesn't tell the real story, because as you remember, back in the early 1970s, most married women didn't work because they didn't have to, because their husbands could afford to support them. But today you have all these women working because men can't afford to support themselves, let alone their wives.
Isn't it wonderful?
But if you look at male labor force participation, it has never been this low in the history of the Republic. There have never been such a small percentage of men who have jobs than now. Look at the wages. They were expecting real wages to go up 0.2. They were flat, you know, and that doesn't adjust for inflation. And average work week went down. This was a horrible report. And of course, if you look at the jobs by, you know, category, we lost manufacturing jobs. We lost mining and logging jobs. We lost wholesale trade jobs. These are the good paying jobs. What jobs did we create? Government jobs, waiters, bartenders, people that ring cash registers, orderlies in hospitals. We created low-paying minimum wage jobs, and we destroyed the good jobs that you can support a family on. That's what's going on.
Now, as I introed it, is it on purpose or is it just ineptitude? I mean, they got a lot of professors, Cloward and Piven, saying they want to make everybody dependent.
Look, they're not smart enough to do this on purpose. If the government was trying to wreck the economy, it'd be booming. I mean, the fact of the matter is, you know, these politicians just want to get elected. Wall Street is concerned about stimulating stock prices. They don't care.
So they're just giving us happy pills and we're drug addicts.
Yeah, I mean, even Carl Icahn came out with this video recently, Danger Ahead. You know, when you got mainstream billionaires starting to figure it out, right? It's getting near the end of the game. Except, you know, he thought that the Fed had been giving the economy medicine, and he was worried what was going to happen when the medicine went away, you know, the 0% rates. He's got the metaphor wrong. It's not medicine, because medicine implies that it's helping. It's monetary heroin. It's a steroid, or you know, it's a painkiller. Whatever the Fed's been giving us has been making the economy sicker, but numbing us to the pain. But he did have an image, a photograph, and I've used this analogy myself too, of everybody partying on a bus and then Janet Yellen pushing the bus, and you can see in the picture that the bus is going to go over the edge of a cliff. But no one cares because they're having so much fun partying on the bus. You know, they're not paying attention.
Because the elite are the recipients of the money up front. They just can't help themselves.
Oh, yeah. And, the thing is, this number came out. Gold's up 20, 25 bucks. I mean, that's nothing. It's still below 1140. The dollar's down a little bit. People still don't get it. They're still clinging to the idea, okay, well, the Fed won't raise by December, but they'll do it early next year. They're not going to raise, right? They still think this is a recovery. It's not. And these job numbers are only going to get worse. And wait till next year comes and we start losing jobs. In fact, if you look at the numbers that came out today on factory orders, horrible numbers, the 10th consecutive year-over-year.
Well, sure, I don't have to look at the numbers. I got family and friends. I know the economy is literally in the toilet. But we'll go over those numbers with Peter Schiff and ask what's coming next straight ahead. I'm Alex Jones. He's with Europac.com. Stay with us. Peter, it really is gallows humor. Peter Schiff of Europac.com joins us, billions under management, predicted the big bubble in 2008 when no one believed it, and a lot of other predictions. Predicted 3-4 years ago that there'd be a crash last year, basically. Well, there is a crash all over the world. We're just drinking Jim Jones Kool-Aid here and don't know it yet. So I think his prediction, Gerald Salente's and others, was accurate. But clearly it's going on now more intensely. They're trying to paper over it. How do you see this unfolding now with the technicals, without getting too technical, in the next few years? I mean, in your gut, you're talking to your wife or talking to, one of your investors, where, sitting around a cocktail, what does Peter Schiff really think's going to happen? I mean, just be honest with us. Nobody's holding you to a prediction, but specifically, what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, well, first of all, I wanted to, continue where I left off about the other data that came out today, the factory orders, which were down, for the 10th month in a row, down more than expected. This has never happened outside of a recession, right? You've never seen this unless we were in a recession. And the Atlanta Fed GDP Now numbers, they came out a couple days ago or yesterday and revised their forecast for Q3, third quarter, to just 0.9. But I think now that this new jobs data is out and we got these factory orders, there's a good chance that we're going to have a negative quarter in the third quarter. Wow. And if we're negative in the third quarter, I bet we're also negative in the fourth quarter, because the fourth quarter tends to be pretty weak. They've been very weak during the last 7 years. So I think if we get a negative third quarter, we'll have a negative fourth quarter. We'll have 2 negative quarters back to back. There's your recession. Now what happens? Now the Fed has to react to that recession. Rates will still be at 0, so they can't cut them. What are they going to do? QE4, right? And that is when the bottom drops out of the dollar, if it hasn't already done it by then. I think there is a great opportunity for your listeners to get out of dollars. I mean, the dollars are still up. We've had this huge rise in the dollar because these currency speculators just don't get it. They still think the economy is in great shape. They still think the Fed's going to raise rates.
Even though the Chinese are exiting. Even though the Chinese are exiting.
Yeah, when reality comes crashing into their expectations, this is going to be a huge event, like the collapse of the subprime, like collapse of the dot-coms. Think of it as the dollar.com or a subprime currency. This thing is going to implode, and I think when it drops, it's going to drop quickly. But people are going to make some serious money, or they're going to protect themselves.
So you think the dollar will plunge or basically jackknife, or will it go down then bounce back up? What do you expect to see?
Yeah, no. I think it's going to go down for the count. Remember, it's risen based on the expectations of all these rate hikes. These rate hikes aren't coming. The dollar has risen because everybody thinks the Fed is finished printing money. They're only getting warmed up. They got a lot more printing yet to come. So this is an opportunity before people wake up, for people to open up accounts with me or other people that can do foreign investing, get out of U.S. dollars, buy some foreign stocks, get your money into Switzerland, get it into Singapore, get it into New Zealand, get some gold stocks. They are dirt cheap. They are giving these things away because people are clueless as to what's going to happen. And
well, I know this. I'm no rocket scientist, but folks should hedge their bets, obviously.
I mean, everybody is making bad bets, and that's how you make money in the market. Take the other side of the bad bets. People made money shorting subprime. They made money shorting dot-coms. People are going to make a ton of money.
How much money did you make predicting the 2008 for your customers?
Well, my customers lost in 2008, right? I had customers that made a lot of money in 2007 on the collapse of subprime. But in 2008, all the foreign stocks that we owned went down. The dollar went up in 2008. The dollar didn't go down until 2009. That's when foreign stocks came back up.
But down the road, you made money, yeah.
But we haven't had a dollar collapse yet. I've been preparing for a dollar collapse for a long time. When my clients made the most money, on the weak dollar was from 2001 to 2008. That's when people betting against the dollar were making a ton of money because the dollar fell for 7 years and hit an all-time low. Gold went from under 300 to 1,000. Oil went from under 20 bucks to 150.
I want to talk about oil. Exactly. We got to go to break. Definitely things are volatile. Definitely we're built a house on top of a volcano that's active. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it's not good. And I'm trying to figure out what to do, just like you are. Stay with us. Now, Peter Schiff, I like getting interviews with you. We get into politics and the world and not just economic stuff. It's not like it's a 5-minute interview on CNBC. So I've got a few political questions and calls for you, but other points you want to telegraph to folks, saying the economy would get worse, saying this would continue. You've been proven right on that. So what do you say is coming next?
Well, let me finish up what I was talking about before the break on, why my clients did so well with me from 2001 to 2008 was because the dollar bubble that had inflated in the late 1990s burst, and then the dollar fell for 7 years. Well, we have a bigger dollar bubble now than we had then. The fundamentals for the U.S. economy are much worse now than they were then. The fundamentals for the dollar are much worse. So when this bubble bursts, look out below. I think the people who are betting against the dollar by buying foreign currencies, by buying foreign stocks, by owning precious metals. Look, silver's up about 5% today alone, but this is just the beginning, right? Metals are going to move much, much higher. I think people are going to make more money in gold and silver stocks in this next leg of the bull market than they did from 2001 to 2008. And those are some very, very good years for the people that were invested in that market. And, a lot of people have been making fun of me on CNBC. Oh, Peter Schiff's been predicting a weak dollar and it hasn't fallen. Wait till they see how weak this dollar is going to get. No one has any idea how quickly and how much value the dollar is going to lose. And, I just put up another video of some of my predictions from 2006. If you go on YouTube and you search it for 2006 all over again, look at the things I was saying. And the reason I did 2006 was the real estate market blew up in 07, not 08. The financial crisis happened in 08, but the real estate market blew up in 07. And in 2006, nobody saw it coming. And watch some of those videos from 2006. This is how clueless the mainstream can be, including the Federal Reserve, when there is a disaster right around the corner and they can't see it. So we have another disaster. It's around another corner. I can see it. And I think people need to protect themselves and they need to get their financial ducks in a row now, because if you wait too long, it's going to be too late, because once the dollar collapses, if all you got is dollars, you're holding a bunch of paper.
Let me put it to you this way. I said before the break, we built a house on top of an active volcano. Smoke's coming out, some lava's boiling around, the ground's rumbling, some rocks are bouncing down the side of the cliff. I don't know when it's going to blow up. The seismologists don't know. The volcanologists don't know. All I know is I've looked at history. This never goes well. Let's say you're wrong. Could the laws of economics be suspended with computers or whatever? Could this just go on forever? I mean, what are some of the other scenarios if you're wrong?
It can't go on forever, right? And the fact that 2008, really, that was the beginning of the end. The process has already started, so we're already here. But yes, they have found ways to delay the process, stretch it out, but only at the cost of making it worse. Realizing the Fed now is really in a box because they've been pretending they were going to raise rates for years, and now their backs are to the wall, and they have to admit that they're not going to do it. And when they have to launch QE4, and when everybody thought the Fed was finished and that it had worked, and now they find out that it didn't work and they have to do it all over again, the Fed's credibility is gone, and the next leg of the dollar bear market is going to begin. And this is not going to be, stretched out beyond the decade. I mean, we're going to live through this. Look, the Chinese are already selling their treasuries. This is the tip of a huge iceberg. I think all these emerging market economies from Southeast Asia, from Latin America, are going to be dumping their treasuries maybe by next year. All these countries bought trillions of dollars worth of treasuries in 2010, 2011, when they were fighting a currency war to prevent their currencies from rising as we were doing quantitative easing. They're not going to make that same mistake twice. The next time the dollar goes down, it's not going to have any friends. No one's going to be buying it. No one's going to fight that currency war again. America's going to lose that war.
Sure.
And anybody that owns the U.S. dollar is going to lose that war.
I think my gut tells me, and looking at the economics and history, I think you're on the money. I think other weird stuff could happen, stuff so upside down and so crazy. But regardless, we're headed into some very unstable times. I want to make this point, get your take on it, and then go to calls. Peter Schiff, again, is our guest right now. You're listening to the Alex Jones Show. I see Putin being worshipped, being lionized, the commenters on my site, but other mainstream sites, YouTube, as if he's Jesus or something. I see that as a bellwether of the incredible disdain, discontent, hatred the American people have, the disillusionment with our government and the mainstream media. At the same
time, I mean, look at how popular Trump is, or look at Bernie Sanders. I mean, people are fed up and they are reaching for anything that's different, right? Anything that anybody that sounds like maybe they can make a difference. And you know, one of the things I like about Trump is he's got a lot of the problems right. He identifies the problems that a lot of other candidates don't want to address, but he doesn't really offer solutions that will work, because the solutions that will work, you know, involve a lot of political, it involves cutting programs. But he doesn't want to talk about that. He says, I'm going to save Social Security. I'm going to give out free health care, right? So he doesn't want to really say,
like a Democrat.
I've got the bitter tasting medicine. He's got the right problems, but he's got quackery type of solutions that aren't going to work.
I agree. So let's get into Putin, because I want your take on this specifically to finish it. I see the collapse in American confidence, mainstream news saying Putin's now the leader of the free world. Not that Putin's really the leader of the free world. It's that we've lost so much confidence, the world has, that this serious situation in Syria, pun intended, is really the iceberg peeking up above the surface, showing that the world is beginning to turn on America. I mean, I really think the full confidence of the world is beginning to shift, and once it goes, it's going to go quick.
Yeah, and what's going to accelerate that process is the drop of the dollar, and then piercing this mystique that we've got this great economy, this sound economy, that our leaders know what they're doing, that our central bankers are somehow geniuses. When that myth is pierced, right, this is a whole new ball game, and the world is going to look at America through a whole different perspective.
What do you expect that fallout to be like?
It's not going to be pretty. You know, I mean, we're going to have to get used to living in a whole new reality where, you know, the dollar is not the center of the monetary system, and that means Americans can't live beyond our means. I mean, Americans take for granted that we can buy all kinds of stuff that we don't produce. We don't have the factories that make all the stuff. You know, our production is so low. In fact, you know, my brother was doing some calls of reporters asking, you know, why are you not, you know, covering all this horrible manufacturing data that all the Fed surveys are showing? And the reporter told my brother, well, we don't really pay attention to manufacturing anymore because it's such a small part of the economy, nobody cares about it, which says so much, A, that it's so small, but B, that nobody even cares about it. You need to care about it because it shouldn't be small.
They're totally delusional. How can we not manufacture?
If we want to consume, we have to produce. So we live because the world is dumb enough to trade the stuff they produce.
We produce
for the paper
money. And these people don't think that's a problem. It just shows the fundamental disconnect that when things do collapse, which it will, what goes up must come down. They are going to be just a nightmare force to deal with. Can you imagine these hordes of ignorant trendies, Peter, what they're going to be like during a depression?
Oh, look, you know, America had a lot more civility during the 1930s when we had that depression. Can you imagine what would go on bread lines today? I mean, what would Americans do in the situation like the 1930s? I mean, look what happens, you know, look how they riot and loot just, you know, when something goes wrong, or look at what they do when their team wins a sporting event. You know, I mean, imagine something really bad, you know, imagine what's going to happen then. You know, the sad part is pretty soon we're not going to have to imagine it. We're going to live through it.
It's a time bomb. We live on top of a time bomb. We are sitting on top of a time bomb, and our politicians and leaders are not doing anything to try to reverse this, but they are buying armored redoubts. So I guess I think the establishment knows where this is going, Peter. They're just trying to put it off as long as they can and trying to milk it.
Well, absolutely. And, you know, by postponing it, they extend and pretend. But the problems get worse. That means the solution ultimately is more painful, but it does provide a window of opportunity for people who have not yet prepared themselves financially to do so. And that's, you know, one of the reasons I come on your program. I think it's important for people to be prepared. I mean, when this thing collapses, I want as many Americans as possible not to go broke because so many will. And the important thing is to have people that understand why the country's in so much trouble, to have the resources to help do something to help build it back up again.